Hit pieces attacking the fans for failing to embrace the latest movie or series to subvert Star Wars is nothing new. What is new, however, is these hit pieces also attacking not merely the original trilogy, but George Lucas' original vision for Star Wars as well. Yet that is what Collider just did. Let's dive in. With 2 episodes left, there is still budget for a final promotional push for the Acolyte, and seemingly some of that was spent on buying coverage from Collider, who proceeded to write a hit piece against the Star Wars fanbase at large, as well as the original trilogy. This hit piece gets straight to the point in the headline alone. Star Wars' biggest problem is the fans, aka the very people sustaining the brand in the first place. Also note that in the past, such hit pieces made at least some attempt at clarifying that this or that hit piece was directed at a supposed vocal minority of the fans, not the fan base at large, but there is no pretending that anymore. The jig is up. The response to the Acolyte clearly demonstrates that the majority of fans are against this, while only a small subset of the fan base are actually supportive of what Disney and Kathleen Kennedy have been doing. And considering their penchant for hurling death threats at the likes of Star Wars theory, I'd even go so far as to say that it is this minority of Disney Star Wars fans who are the real toxic fans. Though, of course, this article, which is also rather toxic in its gaslighting, takes a different perspective because it has to spin the Acolyte's failure. The gaslighting begins right away with "the internet has never made it easy for people to speak their minds," which is a complete lie and a 180-degree inversion of truth and actual reality. The internet is what makes it possible to speak your mind and be heard. The internet is what makes an outlet like this very YouTube channel possible, so brace yourself for some grade A gaslighting coming from this article here. The piece clarifies this insane take though, continuing, "Convenience of digital connection aside, there have always been online trolls and toxic comments ready to pounce on anyone who dares to bear their authentic self in public life. And the newest round of controversies and unfounded criticisms directed at Star Wars projects demonstrates that the beloved sci-fi franchise is no different." This is coming from a publication that is all for cancel culture, by the way, so I'm inclined to believe that their real problem is that real voices can provide authentic pushback to corporate spin and outright lies. This is a big problem for the modern-day aristocracy in general, who now suddenly have to deal with community notes on X. And for companies like Lucasfilm, it means that the spin pieces they pay good money to the likes of Collider for get torn to shreds, like right here in this video. And neither Lucasfilm nor Collider are too pleased with that, and so they lash out at the clouds this way. The piece continues. For decades, viewers have been relentlessly attacking Star Wars performers and creators, which is an exaggeration and one which ignores the media's own complicity, for it was they that bullied Kelly Marie Tran off of Twitter, not the fans. And in more modern times, we've heard plenty claims about attacks on performers, yet we see no evidence of it, which is weird in public forums. We do see the counterattacks though, with Amanda Stenberg even releasing a diss track accusing fans of being racist. The Collider piece continues. The vitriol of these persistent voices has subsequently spread throughout the internet, which would be because the majority of fans agree, making it feel impossible to say anything positive about Star Wars without turning every discussion into a heated debate. Well, that would be because there's nothing positive to say, simple as that. If one were to say something like, "I recognize that this isn't up to par by any objective standard, but you know what, I kind of like it anyway, it works for me," then no one would have an issue. We all have our guilty pleasures. The heated debate comes when the likes of Grace Randolph tries spinning The Acolyte as something objectively well written that you all should be excited about and get behind, which it so obviously is not that even her own audience that are there for her turned on her, because that was a bridge too far. The article then brings up the latest news from nigh on 3 decades ago, writing the unacceptable abuse that Star Wars prequel-era actors like Ahmed Best received from fans in the late 90s and early 2000s has been well documented. I'm not defending that, but would hasten to add that that was in the early days of the internet, so it kind of undermines the point from the beginning of the article. And furthermore, most was a reaction to a poorly conceived character that someone needed to stop Lucas from ever committing to screen in that form. Next, the article then reverts to complaining about the alleged review bombing, conveniently ignoring that the audience score is the legitimate audience opinion and that the real problem is that the critics are so out of touch that their opinion is rendered worthless before doing something new, attacking the original trilogy. Criticizing the cinema of the 70s as a problematic but thankfully short-lived fluke and a blip in history, the piece states. This was a time when Hollywood relied almost exclusively on traditional tropes to tell stories, exclusively through a Eurocentric white male lens. Protagonists were almost always played up as ultra-masculine tough guys, while supporting casts typically consisted of domestic female characters or problematic stereotypes. And as films released during this insulated time period, the original Star Wars movies are often construed as possessing a similarly narrow narrative focus. That's Collider saying that the original trilogy is outdated, racist, and misogynistic. The piece continues, and pay close attention now, because this is where the mask comes off. Despite taking place in a galaxy far, far away from the filmmaking conventions of Earth, Star Wars Original Trilogy features a mostly white cast, female characters with largely unrealized potential, and no LGBTQIAP+ storylines depicted on screen. There we got to the real issue. The real problem that Collider, and by extension Lucasfilm, has with not just the original trilogy, but with the fan base and their refusal to accept Kathleen Kennedy's Star Wars. Or rather, their refusal to accept diversity, equity, and inclusion. Or put yet another way, their refusal to accept corporate neo-Marxist propaganda. This Collider propaganda piece then proceeds to list the things that fans love about the original trilogy that, and since their mask has come off, let's not be shy about naming them, that commies find deeply problematic. Bemoaning this love for the original trilogy, the propaganda piece acts like Kathleen Kennedy's mouthpiece, saying, unfortunately, this mindset's reliance on the original trilogy's outdated aesthetics severely limits the understanding of what a Star Wars story can be. And for an example of what commies think Star Wars can be and should be, look no further than The Acolyte. A series where up is down, black is white, the Jedi are evil, and as we're about to see in the next video, gender tropes are subverted to where Osha has masculine features while Smilo Ren has feminine features. This propaganda piece doesn't say any of that, of course, as that would be too on the nose. So instead, it proceeds to go through the prequel era, in which some progress was made, though obviously not enough for the commies at Collider. Getting to the Disney era, they write, while Disney did make some decisions that caused legitimate controversy within the Star Wars fandom, such as removing the beloved Legends continuity from canon, many alleged controversies of this time period unfolded because problematic Star Wars viewers chose outrage over trying to understand change. By which they actually mean. The controversies unfolded because non-commies chose outrage over trying to accept critical race theory and societal subversion. But all of that is in the past. Now they get to the future and their intention for it, which is even put in a subheader. The future of Star Wars should be focused on representation and inclusivity. The piece states, "As the bigoted campaigns against Obi-Wan Kenobi's Moses Ingram and the Acolyte prove, Star Wars online hate isn't going away anytime soon. Therefore, it's up to Star Wars creatives to boldly navigate the turbulent waters of the beloved franchise's fandom." In a recent interview with the New York Times, Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy herself acknowledged that women in Star Wars are often subject to audience attacks because of the franchise's vocal male fanbase, as well as espousing her belief that storytelling needs to be representative of all people. I broke down this article in an earlier video, check out the link in the description for that. Collider continues though, "This sentiment echoes the similar views of both headline and director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who is set to helm Star Wars' upcoming solo Rey film." In an interview with Variety, Chinoy expressed her appreciation for the franchise's passionate fanbase, but she also acknowledged it's best for her to drown out those voices in order to tell her stories. That's a long-winded call to action, and the commie way of saying they don't care about the audience. The message shall continue, even if it drives every last paying fan away. In short, this whole Collider piece is written by activists, and it's calling for Lucasfilm to ignore audience feedback and keep pushing the message, at shareholder expense. This is standard commie playbook, similar to when they claimed there was this massive fan demand that Gina Carano be fired. A fan demand which later turned out to be little more than bots on the old Twitter, quite possibly commissioned by Lucasfilm themselves. It's a variation of the wrap-up smear, which is commonly used in party politics.
You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident.
If there was any sanity left in Disney, then Bob Iger should have Kathleen Kennedy frog-marched into his office, demand to know if she commissioned this Collider piece, which ultimately will hurt Disney more than anyone else, and when it turns out that she did, fire her on the spot. But of course, if there was any sanity left at Disney, that would have happened years ago anyway, and things would never have gotten to be as bad as they are now. Now, Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm are the empire, demanding everyone fall in line with their new order for Star Wars. But they're about to find out that the fanbase won't stop rebelling quite so easily. Next, we'll look into who the powers that be wants to replace the problematic traditional Star Wars fanbase with, and you won't want to miss out on that. So please like and help share this video, and then subscribe and indicate you want notifications on all videos to increase the chances that you'll actually be notified when the next one drops. For now, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments.